Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I've talked a bit about AI on this channel. I've also talked about cars before. And here's a story where those things intersect. Mark Phillips sent me, thanks a lot. From theindependent.com, Ford hired AI and sacked humans, and it backfired badly. So to translate that to American, Ford fired the humans and hired AI, and it didn't go well. So Anthony Cuthbertson wrote this for The Independent. Ford has admitted to rehiring hundreds of human workers after its aggressive AI adoption strategy backfired. The U.S. automaker hired over 350 veteran engineers, and they brought them back over a period of 3 years in order to address mistakes made by automated systems. So the staff will lead quality reviews. This all has to do with quality of the product. After the automation issues cost the company billions of dollars. Billions with a B. That was according to Bloomberg. While some workers will also help improve and train the AI systems. So yes, as many people have noted, they have hired engineers to help train the AI that will replace them. So Ford's chief operating officer said we had been relying more and more on automated quality systems and not getting the desired results. We brought back technical specialists and they hunt for failure points before a part ever reaches the plant floor. Ford had been increasingly relying on AI-driven inspection systems to streamline production and address quality control issues. However, the firm acknowledged that AI lacked a nuanced judgment when it comes to complex problems. So they aren't designing the cars just yet. I suspect that day is coming. And you'll end up with having a car that's got like 5 wheels or something. But no, I mean, they do humans with 6 fingers. Why not? But this is on inspection systems and quality control. And as you might have heard recently, Ford has had issues with quality control. So after rehiring experienced engineers, Ford says that they saw a marked improvement in its quality standards. And in fact, this will be hard to believe for some people, according to the latest J.D. Power Initial Quality Survey, which is an annual automotive benchmark that measures the quality of new vehicles, Ford ranked top among mainstream brands, the first time it's been on that list at that spot in 16 years. So Ford continues to have quality issues with its older vehicles and remains the most recalled automaker in the U.S., though executives blamed this on past issues involving automation rather than the rehiring of humans. Company said it would not abandon its use of AI, but plans to now use it in conjunction with human oversight and experience. Hey, who'd have thought you might need to have some humans double-check the work of the AI, at least at first? I don't know. So, Ford's VP of Vehicle Hardware Engineering said that artificial intelligence is a fantastic tool, but it's only as good as the information you use to train it. Over prior years, we didn't pay as much attention as we should have to the experience of our most knowledgeable engineers that have been with us through many product cycles. Mistakenly, we thought that by just introducing artificial intelligence and adjusting the design requirements that we had, that would produce a high-quality product. Mistakenly, we thought that by just introducing AI and ingesting the design requirements that we had, that would produce a high-quality product. And that was a mistake. So what's wild about this is there are so many things that can go wrong in assembling a car. And it can be a bad piece, and it can also be a mistake on the assembly line. So I can think of a couple examples right off the top of my head, and one of them did not involve Ford, but there was a recall a couple of years ago I did a story on. It had something to do with the coming apart of the shifter in a particular make and model of car that came down an assembly line on a particular day. And people started complaining, saying, hey, something happened with my shifter. My shifter's not working. You know, I'm talking about it's a automatic transmission vehicle, but the shifter would somehow stop causing anything to happen. And what was happening was that there was a connection underneath there that was held together with a nut and a bolt. And as it came down the assembly line, the nut and the bolt were supposed to be fastened using a torque wrench to a specific torque specification. And they discovered that on one shift, somebody had mishandled the torque wrench and caused the torque settings to be off. So for an entire shift, and I'm not sure how many cars that was, probably 100 or so, or I don't know, maybe more than 100, but there was a small number of cars when it comes to a recall. It wasn't hundreds of thousands of cars. It was, 100, a couple hundred cars. It may not have been the full shift either. That nut and that bolt fell apart. And that's because they weren't torqued down properly. And so you wonder how something like that gets caught by anybody, let alone, on the assembly line by AI. And of course, that one wasn't caught by anybody. And those vehicles went out in the wild, got sold, people were driving along, and all of a sudden the shifter stops working. And it fell apart in there. But I also can tell you that I owned a vehicle once where I got a note in the mail saying your vehicle is subject to a recall because the water pump might be defective. And it goes, you have to go into a dealership and bring this card with you, and they will examine your car. And if your car is subject to the recall, you'll get the new water pump for free, installed for free, no cost to you, blah, 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 blah. And so I brought the car into the dealership. Guy pops the hood. He leans in, takes the card, leans in, looks at something. He goes, you're good. And I go, I'm just curious. What are you looking at? And he goes, there's a batch number or a part number or some kind of identifying feature, not a part number, but an identifying feature on the part that shows which batch it came from. And it turns out that the automaker had bought water pumps from a vendor, and they got a bad batch one day. And they determined that this one batch of them was bad. Now, I don't know how many were in the bad batch, but there was enough of them to where they sent out notices to everybody who bought one of those cars within a certain window of time, because obviously the cars get built and they get shipped out. So they may have gone off of, build dates and so on. But the point is that I got the note, but they glanced at it and said, nope, you didn't get one of those. So I was good. And again, I'm not sure at what point you spot that, because obviously the water pump to naked eye, it only has like 3 parts, and only one of them moves. 2 if you count the bearing it rests upon. But it's not a very complicated part. I don't even know what was wrong with it. The guy, I don't know if I didn't ask him or if he didn't know, but I don't know what was wrong with the water pump. But there was something wrong with the water pump, which, by the way, is an odd thing to recall. Because generally speaking, recalls that are mandated by NHTSA are over safety issues. And while a bad water pump is a danger to your engine, it's not generally a safety issue in the broadest sense that NHTSA would be looking at it. So don't know about that, but my question really is this. What was the AI checking here? And how was the AI checking it? Because this is not simply writing a report based on information that you pulled off the internet and that you strung together to follow the instructions of somebody who gave you a prompt. And I've mentioned before that I've toured plants of automakers. And I can tell you, for instance, I've seen camshafts being made in-house by a manufacturer of engines, okay? So a big company making their own engines, making their own camshafts. And I've seen the camshafts that are finished sitting on little trays, and the person in charge of making them with calipers and a micrometer measuring the different things on the camshaft to make sure they're okay. I'm not sure how you do that without a person. I mean, can that be done? Obviously, you could automate a process where the camshaft is on some kind of assembly line and goes through something, but here it's a person with calipers and micrometers and stuff. So I'm not quite exactly sure where these engineers worked that were replaced by the AI. But the point is, they've now been reinstated. And the AI's been, not fired. The AI's been told to step back and watch a little bit longer as these engineers are training it to do their jobs. So it's a wild story. This AI is working its way into everything, pretty much. And I'm not too crazy about it, but we'll see what happens. So Mark, Philip, thanks for sending that from theindependent.com. Ford hired AI and sacked the humans, and it backfired badly. Questions or comments? Put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Kilometers are shorter than miles. Save gas. Take your next trip in kilometers.